9:30. Welcome to Neurodiversity and Menopause. We've been absolutely thrilled by the interest, and as you'll be able to hear by all the beeps of people joining, this has been an incredibly well subscribed to panel session. We'll start just in a moment when the beeps slow down a little bit, and we'll be. My name's Kathryn Stringer, and I'll be your host and to lead the panel discussion this morning. And I'll introduce you to our panelists. We're going to have a bit of a fireside chat and share some experiences, and then there'll be time for Q&A. And please, as Vic said, do scan the QR code. That's how we're going to be taking questions. You can vote on questions as well, and we'll be using that. So we do have quite a full session, so I am going to kick off now. We've got about 100 and... Any way to mute the beeping? Vic, is there any way to mute the beeping?
That's a very good question. Let me just check 1 second. If you go to the 3 dots at the top right and click More and go to Settings, you should be able to mute notifications. I'm hoping that will help. Let's have a look. Audio settings as well.
The pop-up at the top has a...
It does not appear to be an option, though. That's not very helpful to anyone, is it? Let me try and get everyone into the lobby as quickly as I can so it stops beeping everybody.
If we just admit all... Okay. We'll just give it a second and... Okay, so thought we found it there, but I'm going to kick off. If people can persevere with the beeping, hopefully it will slow down shortly, and we can close the room following that. So welcome, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. I'm coming to you from Chennai in India. At the moment, and one of our panelists is in Brisbane, Australia, and then the Northwest, the Northeast, and various people, various places in the UK. I am just going to mute.
Menopause and neurodivergency. And the woman hosting it is hosting it from Chennai.
I think somebody's got their trying to mute us all. Okay, so as I said, I'm Kathryn Stringer, and I'm here today representing GAIN, which is the Group for Autism, Insurance and Neurodiversity. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be hosting this panel on Neurodiversity Celebration Week, identifying both as neurodiverse and in menopause. It's something that when the opportunity to bring this panel together was first talked about, I absolutely jumped at. So menopause is a significant life transition for women at a time that very often we're at our most experienced in our careers and most established. And then to add to that, either a late diagnosis of autism, ADHD, other neurodiverse diagnosis, or even not diagnosis, just a feeling that our worlds have changed. GAIN in 2025 ran an exploratory survey, and nearly 4 out of 5 women, neurodivergent women, said that perimenopause and menopause had increased the challenges associated with their neurodiverse traits. Things like memory loss, brain fog, task switching, burnout. And high performers describe themselves as that the fact that things that long-term coping strategies that they had relied on throughout their career and their life didn't work anymore. And were finding and experiencing life being far more disorientating than it had been. So all of our panel today bring together their unique perspectives, both personally and professionally, from a workplace perspective and individually. And as part of this, you will also get a chance to feed into GAIN's 2026 survey, which we will be using to continue to develop best practice and to support employers and employees and women in general with this period in their life. So I'm gonna pause there and introduce our fantastic panel. And I'd like to start with Sarah Tame, who's coming to us from Sheffield. Sarah is a health and safety manager at Aviva, who is one of the biggest insurers in the UK and a long-standing partner of GAIN. Sarah is part of the Neurodiversity and Accessibility Network and a champion within Aviva, and has her own diagnosis at 49 during menopause, and brings that experience within a large corporate organisation. Introduce Amanda Graham. So screenwriter, neurodiversity advocate, Neurodisruptors podcast. Amanda talks about how she empowers rebels and dark horses to break barriers, which fascinates me. Amanda and I are going to have conversations after this, definitely, but a creative professional and really embedding storytelling, which will be fantastic for this session. We then have Carla Pollard joining us from Brisbane in Australia. So a neuro coach, writer, behavioural science specialist in the medical legal, and I may have got that wrong, so please, as we jump in, Carla, share with us. Again, with an autism and ADHD diagnosis, perimenopause, and coming through that professional and psychology lens. And she's the founder of the Brain Circus. And Tania Martin, thrilled to have you, Tania. Tania built EY's Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence. She's the founder of PEG Squared, a neuro inclusion consultant, and personally diagnosed with ADHD at 42, and then early menopause, joining the party shortly afterwards. So fantastic to have you all here. I'm gonna kick off with a question, an opener for each of our panel members, please. And if you can tell the audience in one sentence what the most surprising thing about navigating neurodiversity and menopause at the same time has been. So Amanda, as you are prime screen, I will go to you first.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure to see everybody's faces so far. I think the most surprising thing for me about navigating ADHD and menopause at the same time is discovering just how many times I can enter a room and forget why I'm there. That's
Thank you, Bree. I'm glad you know why you're here today. Thank you. Sarah from Sheffield.
Try to take myself off mute. I think the most surprising thing for me is what a double whammy it's been. Yeah, just aggravates everything, and how much more tired I get.
Thank you. Carla.
I think for me, it's a word I promised I wouldn't say, and it's a total cluster F of a scenario, and it's just so unfair that you just start to feel like you're getting somewhere and starting to get things under control, and then it's like being hit with a sledgehammer, and it's just not fair.
Thank you. And last but not least, Tania.
So I think for me, navigating both at the same time, the biggest challenge for me was actually understanding which was which, because some of the symptoms and the characteristics are so intertwined. It was really difficult for me to go, actually, is this ADHD or is this menopause? And I think when I actually stopped and started noticing what was different from what I used to feel, that's when the light bulbs kind of started appearing above my head in terms of what was actually different as opposed to what wasn't the ADHD.
Thank you. I mean, great perspectives of the things that surprised me, and I can resonate with each of those from my own journey. The amount of times I've been looking for my phone whilst my phone is in my hand has always surprised me as well. But great to see comments coming from the audience as well as to the resonance of those and people's own experience as well. So Tania, I'm going to start with you, and I'd like to sort of ask about, many people are either diagnosed late or found that menopause have stripped away coping strategies that people have had and relied on for years. When did you first notice that something had shifted? And I think you just made that point very early on that you weren't sure what was what, but can you talk to us about that a bit more?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for me, I was only diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 42. So I was already, you don't get a diagnosis and suddenly go, oh, right, actually now my whole life makes sense. It's a bit of a journey post-diagnosis to unpick what that actually means for you. And I always remember having that conversation. It's like, what support do you need? And I've got no idea. I've just found this out myself, and I'm starting to try to figure out my own coping strategies. But I think because I was in that post-diagnosis phase trying to work out what the ADHD was, it wasn't until I now look back I realized that actually there were some things that were going on. So I was getting overwhelmed more easily. I was feeling more anxious. I was getting burnt out more easily. And despite everything that I thought I had in place and understanding my ADHD a bit better, it seemed to be getting worse rather than better. And I think it was at that point in time I was like, I actually don't understand what's going on. I've got this knowledge about myself. I am now trying to put in coping strategies to help me with the things I know I find hard. But yeah, I'm still feeling overwhelmed. I'm still feeling burnt out. I'm still feeling like I'm struggling. And it wasn't until for me the physical symptoms hit that I suddenly went, right. Okay, I get this now. I could go and have the conversation. But I was only 44 when I got the doctor put me onto HRT. So I was really young in relation to for like in terms of my family, in terms of how other people have gone through this, in terms of the people around me. So I did find that quite a shock when it happened, but actually also quite insightful.
I'm seeing lots of nodding from our other panelists and some great comments coming up in the chat. Amanda, Carla, Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add to Tania's sharing there?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. It's kind of, I mean, not everybody is medicated, but for me, I was medicated. I was on Vyvanse, and it just stopped working. Like it wasn't doing what it had previously done, and I had no idea why. I'm only 43 now, so you know, I was 41 when we were even having conversations with the GP about being perimenopausal. So it's really quite confronting.
Amanda, I see you've come off mute.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. My experience has been the same. So much has been smushed together, and it's really difficult to unpick everything. And when I don't know how you guys are with your situation with your health, you know, your doctors and whatever else, but I was living in a place where they didn't believe menopause exists. So so it's been really difficult because you know, I have to go online and talk to other women who are going through this to kind of really get where I stand with everything and to get tips and help and whatever else. So community, I think, is really important because that's where you're going to get the honest answers from.
Thank you. And I saw a chat in the post there about dementia. Did anybody? Yeah, I have done online dementia tests. Thinking am I seriously losing my mind? So I that's certainly something that resonated with me. Sarah, can I come to you? You were diagnosed with ADHD at 49, whilst navigating menopause. What did that late diagnosis reveal, and what had you been attributing your experiences to before that?
I guess really, I think up until that sort of point, I'd not really seen that there was a lot. I got a lot of coping strategies in place, and I spent a lot of time navigating for my children, with their ADHD. But the symptoms and the challenges that I was facing just seemed to amplify. And I had a bit of a double whammy because I had a hysterectomy a couple of years before that. So, but they left my ovaries in situ, so my menopause has been sort of a little bit of a weird one, to sort of work out where I'm at with it. So I just think I attributed before I'd got my diagnosis to just being a bit scatty, and a bit, you know, I just didn't see it as a big problem, but I know people commented on it. It was the butterfly brain that really did me, because I'd always been, you know, noted for, I had to blurt it out. If I thought about it, it had to come out my mouth or I'd forget what I was doing. And I think that just got so much worse before. And I think getting the diagnosis just sort of, it was a bit of a light bulb moment of, oh, well, that makes much more sense about why I've been like I am. And then I think, you know, those sort of similar feelings of the amplification at that time with the perimenopause and menopause hitting, it just sort of, it really makes sense now, because it's just double whammy, as I said before.
Is there anything anybody else on the panel would like to add to that from their experience of their diagnosis and what they may have put their symptoms down to beforehand?
I'm in the same boat with that hysterectomy, which just adds a whole different level of complication. I am very fortunate, though. In my job, I'm surrounded by 410 doctors, and they will be the first to tell me when they see something that's not right. So I am so fortunate, really lucky.
Thank you. Carla, I'll stay with you if I may. So as somebody who works on the intersection of neuroscience and your lived experience, what's actually happening neurologically when estrogen starts to fluctuate for the ADHD, the autistic brain?
Okay, I am such a neuroscience nerd, so please stop me if I get too complicated, if I ramble. But we all know that estrogen is not just a sex hormone. It's like the master regulator of brain function. It is responsible for so much, but it directly influences 3 of our key neurotransmitters. So dopamine, serotonin, the acetylcholine, which is the one that's kind of linked to Alzheimer's and dementia, which is why you feel like you're completely losing your brain when you lose your estrogen. And we don't just drop it, it fluctuates. It's all over the place, which is why it can be so confusing. It also directly impacts the hippocampus, so your memory center. It has issues with the prefrontal cortex, so it works on that planning and impulse and your decision making. So as I said, during the perimenopause, it doesn't just drop, it kind of goes all over the place, and it's so unpredictable. So it creates inconsistent dopamine, and we already struggle with dopamine. So for it to be taken away, and it reduces our focus and our motivation and our reward drop off. Our serotonin is impacted. So those mood swings and the anxiety and the irritability, and you want to stab your husband in the face, it just gets 10 times worse than it was when it was just ADHD. And then you've got those acetylcholine decline, which is your memory issues and your brain fog. And at the same time, it's influencing your hypothalamus. So that's why you get the night sweats and you get hot and your ears start to itch and your skin feels like it's burning and anti, and your inflammation increases. So you get your bad joints, and you get itchy, and it's just, it impacts everything. It's your whole system. And we already know that it's harder for neurodiverse women. So when that finely balanced system is then suddenly amplified, it's just, as I said, it's a cluster F. You're on mute, Kathryn.
Yes, I do that a lot more now too. Amanda, if I can come across to you, please. You've talked about how terrifying for many neurodivergent women to be able to express their needs at work because they've learned it may be held against them. So how do we change that? And what do you wish workplaces understood about what it actually costs somebody to have that conversation?
I mean, I think there's probably loads of people in here who know exactly what it costs them. We all know, right? Like at any given time, anyone who's neurodivergent, like 40% of people are out of work. And for autistics, it's up to 70%. And we need to pay bills and survive. Dare I say thrive. But there's no trust. If there's no trust in our workplace, then we have to make a trade-off. Like we have to go, okay, how much masking can I do to get my job done, to not look like a problem, to not look like I'm an inconvenience or causing chaos or whatever else. But what is tricky is that all of us who have ADHD, autism, or whatever we're already misunderstood a lot. We're not believed, or we're accused of exaggerating, and we can explain till we're blue in the mouth, like, I ask why questions because I need to know how things work. I'm not challenging authority. And they say, okay. And then after that, it's like the conversation is never had. And then, of course, there's the stereotypes as well. So if we self-disclose, like being autistic, there's a stereotype that, like, we can't cross the street without getting hit by a car or something, or that we can't have relationships. And yes, I have been hit by a car, but that doesn't mean that I can't do work as well. Okay, I can work. I know what I'm doing. And so it's really hard to get that trust. I don't know how we change that. The only people who can change that are the employers. There are a million resources available to them. There's training out there from the government, from organizations, and whatever else. So real quick, if we talk about a few practical things they could do, first, providing the workplace with a disability advocate, who people can go to disclose things would be good. Listening to people and believing them when they talk about their symptoms and what their challenges are. And they have to show that they are taking the conversations seriously with public commitments, demonstrable trust, being flexible, allowing neurodivergent people to work to the best, schedule that they have, and also don't overlook the strengths we have. There are so many amazing people I know who struggle with, I can't work Monday mornings because I'm overwhelmed with the spoons and everything, and so they're considered a problem, but they have these amazing things, like they're great in a crisis, and they're brilliant at brainstorming and connections and collaborations and stuff, and that's ignored. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Amanda. And that, if I can add to that, from my perspective, when menopause hit, as a senior woman in a large corporate organization, and then an ADHD diagnosis, I had quite a internal dialogue going on of, do I be the role model and put my head above the parapet versus, is it safe to put my head above the parapet, and what does doing that mean, and that internal dialogue. Tania, you've done a lot of work with your work with EY, and then your professional work with, I'm not sure if we've lost Tania. How do you create, and Amanda's just shared some thoughts there, in an environment, a performance-driven environment, to feel safe to say that you're struggling rather than just masking until you burn out?
So I think firstly, it's really important to say that psychological safety doesn't come from a policy. It doesn't come from a statement by leadership. It doesn't come from a list of company values. It is about what people see every single day. So it is about those around people, as opposed to bold statements around inclusion. And the reality is we do work in high performance environments. So we are performance managed. We are given lists of objectives that we're supposed to be assessed against. We are potentially paid on our performance. So that high performance culture in organizations is embedded into the organization. So it makes it incredibly difficult to stick your hand up and say, I can't do something, or I am struggling, because everything around you is built in a way that suggests that actually it's strengths that you're measured on, not the challenges that you're currently being faced with. So I think this is where we all actually play a part in not only normalizing difference, but celebrating difference. And I think that in itself helps start to change the workplace from the inside out. The difficulty with change, though, particularly within corporates, is it never happens quick enough. It happens really slowly and usually not when you need it. So we've got to sometimes be patient with that pace of change. But I do want to tell you a little bit of a story about something that's happened at EY. So as I was introduced, I was one of the people responsible for building EY's Neurodiversity Centre of Excellence. And about 5 years ago, we started a ripple across the organisation in terms of talking about neurodiversity. So it was something that we spoke about in team meetings. It was something we spoke about at community events. We spoke about it with our clients. EY were incredibly vocal about what we were doing about neurodiversity. That started 5 years ago. Fast forward 5 years, I got a message from a colleague last week to tell me that she was on an internal event which is always has a huge number of people attending. And she said to me that on that internal event, everybody that spoke either referenced their own neurodiversity or they spoke about it more broadly. And that took 5 years of normalizing it for people to feel safe to do that. And then when you add menopause in on top of that, it makes it even more complicated and complex. So this is very much about keep telling the stories, keep normalizing that difference within teams, keep celebrating the difference within teams, make people feel safe that they are okay to stick their hands up and say, actually, this isn't working for me right now. So yeah, that's how I would approach it.
Thank you very much, Tania. Sarah, you're our panelist that's working in a large corporate organisation still. So from that position, and you're a champion for accessibility and for neurodiversity, what does genuinely good support look like in practice, and what's still missing from your vantage point within a large corporate organisation?
It's a bit of a challenge, this, because large corporates, it varies from pockets. So you have really good experience, you have really bad experience. But I think good support is when you feel that you've got that psychological safety to admit when you're struggling without fear that it's going to be held against you. And when you know that you've got people around you that will look to work for solutions with you as an individual, because we're all different. So we need a little bit of space perhaps to understand what our challenges are and what support we can implement and put in place that will actually help us with that, because it can be a lot of trial and error, and knowing that people around you've got that patience to help and support you with that. And I think one thing we've got in Aviva that is very helpful is that we've got a workplace adjustment passment process. So within that, you can have those conversations with your leader, with your team. You can articulate what your strengths, your challenges are. And you can document what adjustments you've got in place so that you don't need to keep repeating that. So if you have a change of team, a change of leadership, you can then point them to your passport and explain, what helps you, what supports you. Other things that have been good in terms of support are things like assistive tech. So where we can utilise AI and other assistive tech ideas to help us with things like executive functioning and our concentration, flexible working, and understanding from our management and peers of some of our behaviours. I think meetings is really hard when you're sitting very still. I'll probably start fidgeting soon. So when you're allowed to unmask, that's what good support looks like. But I think we've still got a long way to go with that in terms of educating our colleagues and leaders around it, because I know it's been mentioned before about, being able to express what your challenges are. And And, you know, we have got some fantastic leaders, but there are still people within a large organisation. Like I said, the culture, it takes a long time to change the culture. There is still times when, I mean, I've had my head above the parapet for a long time because I've been part of the movement that's sort of led our way with neurodiversity and creating the network and the neurodiversity hub within Aviva. And there have been times when I have seriously regretted the fact that I am out, and that people know that I have ADHD at times, because I have had comments made about some of my behaviours. It's not sort of acceptable to be so bouncy, and you know, it's been misinterpreted in the way that I behave at work. And you know, those sort of comments that we get from time to time about, you know, we all forget things from time to time, we're all a little bit forgetful, we're all a little bit this, it's not to the same degree. And I think it's that lack of, we need to sort of really get that understanding with people that, you know, yes, we all have a little bit of those elements, but to get the diagnosis or to identify in that way, it is much more than just the odd occasion. And it's not just a case of working harder, and it's not a fad. Just because more people are being diagnosed, I mean, a lot of women particularly, yes, menopause exacerbates it, but also we have, you know, you find out that your children have got ADHD or neurodivergent, and then that sort of highlights your own, and the menopause just makes it so much harder. So I think we've still got a long way to go in terms of that education piece, but I think we can get there if, you know, with that positivity to keep moving it forward, because there is good support. And I think the fact that the organisation is willing to do that and we are moving forward with it shows real positive, you know, shows a real positive way forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for continuing to put your head above the parapet. And there were some great comments in the chat around people knitting or crocheting to keep themselves in their seat. But somebody picked up in the chat just there about the word disabled. Carla, could I come to you on that point? I feel that's something that we should just touch on, whether you could give a view on the use of that word and its the implications of it are quite far reaching.
They are, but they're also very personal. So, and as we all know, different neurotypes, and everybody's neurotype is very different. And the impacts that have on their functional capacity are very, very different. And whether you as a person consider those impacts to be disabling or not is a very personal and very individual journey. I don't myself use the word disabled to describe my neurotype, but I'm also 2E, and I also hate the word high functioning. I despise it with a passion. And I mask very well. But then you've got the burnout and the exhaustion that comes with that. So I guess I'm more disabled at home than I am at work because I mask better. But yeah, the term disability for me is a tick box government exercise to whether you get funding or not. And it all very much comes back to functional capacity. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's a comment there about superpowered. I know we all have very different views as to that as well. But Amanda, can I come to you? So with your storytelling hat on, I mean, some people, for some people, this transition is a story of loss. For some people, it's a story of discovery of themselves. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you can hold both of those at once, or your story around what did this mean for you?
Sure. It was difficult for me because being in the TV and film industry, which is one of the most ageist industries in the world, I was already getting the impacts of the aging once I hit 40. And so I was, you know, already not being chosen for things and kind of, and it really put me in a real financial bind. There were times when I was living on carrots and potatoes. You know, one year I had to shoplift my son's birthday cake that's how bad it got. And then obviously the whole time, because I only got diagnosed at 48, so the whole time I was going through that, I didn't know that I was ADHD, and so I didn't have any really support for it. So what I had to do was realize that a lot of us, when we age and get to the menopause age, we're always going for the same types of jobs we went for in the past, and without realizing that actually now that we're older, we know things, and what we should be doing is realizing that we've moved up in status. I hate to use that word status, it's so ego, but in other words, maybe shifting to teaching instead of doing the same things over and over again, you know, guiding, consulting, and things like that. So what I did was I let go of the older part of the younger part of me who was working on TV productions and things. And I started leaning more into the traits once I got diagnosed that were really showing up hard for me, you know, like being a loudmouth and being interested in lots of things. And so I just decided to kind of change what I was doing for the TV and film industry and just do solely writing and ghostwriting. And then I started public speaking, sharing my experiences. And it's taken a while, right, to build my own business and to build you know, a reputation for speaking and ghostwriting and things like that. But I have to say, like, letting go of what I thought aging was going to be and what I thought I should be doing, and then leaning into the stuff that makes me weird, really worked for me. And what's great about being a freelancer, it can be hard sometimes, but I control my environment. So yes, my boss is really irresponsible sometimes, and yes, my boss puts, you know, her foot in it, but at the same time, I don't have to worry about anybody in the office giving me a hard time about you know, having an extra sensory day or whatever else. So I would advise people, like, it's okay to mourn that bit. We're aging, and it kind of sucks to age, right? But we also get authority with that. So lean into the authority. Don't be afraid to lean into that.
I love that, leaning into your traits, leaning into that authority. And Tania, you made a big shift out of a big global consultancy, you know, real pressure in that consultancy world, and into founding your business and the work that you do now. How was that transition for you?
A bit of a roller coaster. There are definitely bits of corporate that I miss, particularly when randomly when things are hard, when I'm struggling, when things are feeling overwhelming. Actually, I really miss the structure, and I really miss the people around me. So there are definitely times where actually corporate provided an environment for me that actually sometimes I still crave, and my brain still craves. But on the flip side of that, I think, like Amanda said, like the ability to have the flexibility to work in my own space. I think one of the things I've noticed most about not being in corporate anymore is I don't get headaches as often, because I'm not stuck under the bright lights and the noise and everything else that's going on around me when I'm in the office. And actually, when I'm at home, I can control my environment a lot more. And the flexibility I have to choose in terms of what I'm doing and what I'm focused on and when I work. And if I work till 10 o'clock at night, which I often do because my brain tends to wake up at the end of the day, that's on me. That's not on anybody else anymore. And I think there's a sense of relief that comes from that.
Thank you. So I'm going to come to audience questions in a moment. Just got one question that I'd like an answer from each of you on, please. So what is the one thing that you would want every line manager to understand? And what would you say to the woman in the audience who recognises herself in the things that we are talking about today? Amanda, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. To the line manager, what I would say is if you're willing to meet us halfway, you will have all the benefits of having a menopausal neurodivergent employee, which is like creativity, excellent problem solving, brainstorming, research, pattern spotting, finding collaborations. You miss out on that if you tamp us down or don't keep us around. And to the women who recognize themselves, what I would say is you are so not alone. You are understood. And even if people around you in your world don't understand you, you are surrounded by 262 people who are here for a reason. We all have a common experience. So please, please, please seek out your community. Seek it, whether it's a WhatsApp group, whether it's, a Facebook group, whatever, just to keep your sanity while you're going through this stage and finding your feet.
Thank you. Sarah, what would you say to the line manager and the woman on the call?
I think to the line managers, I think I would say that, this is maybe this point in our lives when we hit menopause is a period where we perhaps cease to cope like we used to cope. And so we might have managed things quite well in the past, but the double impact of, for myself, ADHD and the menopause has just been that, as I say, proper double whammy, and it can make challenges so much bigger. But work with us and help us to get to the place where we need to be, because we've still got a lot to offer. And I think for the women on the call, I would say, we really just need to talk about this stuff so much more, because one of my biggest things that I say is knowledge is power. And the more that you know, and the more we're empowered to talk to one another and learn and understand what is going off, the more we can change the system and support each other out there. Because, like was said, find your tribe. We are so much more powerful when we're together, because rather than have that feeling of isolation, you start to understand that this actually is where we felt quite abnormal. It is actually normal within our community, because there are so many of us that experience this and we aren't alone.
Thank you. Carla?
I think it's for the line manager, start a conversation, but don't expect us to know what we need or want. So a lot of the women that I coach and come to me have no idea what reasonable adjustments they want. So I've developed a checklist that I'm more than happy to share, which is supposed to be a conversation starter. And it includes things like loops or darker lights or don't touch me because I don't want to be touched, whatever, it's a conversation starter. But we don't know what we need. We're going through this for the first time ourselves, and we've probably just got to grips with our neurodiverse diagnosis. And for the woman out there, you are not alone. You are totally normal. I hate the word normal, but you are normal. This is a part of life, and you're not going through it by yourself. And although you might feel like you are losing your mind and going completely crazy, I promise you it will pass. Estrogen, estrogen, estrogen.
Thank you, Carla. And yes, we will make a version of Carla's checklist available. Thank you for that offer, Carla. And that was one of the questions that's trending highest, is around what reasonable adjustments do we suggest? Where do you start? So thank you for bringing that in. And Tania, what would you offer to the line manager and to the listener on the call?
So to the line manager, there's two things. Firstly is a reminder that you are also human, and you also have experienced challenges, and just remember that when you are managing other people. And also the second thing for the line manager is your role is about creating a safe environment where somebody can trust to ask for help. So the cost of somebody masking and burning out is far higher than having one honest conversation. So I think creating that safe space where someone can feel like they can share honestly, feel that they're supported and listened to, and that can genuinely be the difference between someone staying and leaving an organization. And what we're often talking about is your high performers in your teams that are having bad times as well. It's not just those that you potentially might think, oh, actually, I'm struggling with this individual. It goes across the board. So that's really useful to bear that in mind. And to the individual that's listening, nodding along to things that we're saying. I think for many of us, simply having the language of that our experience can be incredibly empowering. It's about finally understanding ourselves. And I would say it's not a loss, but a way forward. So think of it in terms of actually, what do I do with this information, and how do I move forward as a result of having this information now?
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move over to Slido with some questions that we've had through. So we've talked about adjustments. We're going to share Carla's checklist, which is great. Thank you. Any other coping mechanisms, treatments that people have found useful in helping managing perimenopause symptoms for neurodiverse? I'll open that up to anybody who wants to pop their hand up and answer from our panel. Tania, do you want to go first?
So I would suggest that one of the most useful things that we have available to us is technology. And I don't mean that in a scary, got to download lots of different things type of way. And technology can act as a real bridge for us. In terms of, you've just got to know what to look for in terms of technology. So there are a whole heap of different tools built into the software, into Microsoft, that are already available to us. You just need to know where to find it. But not only do you need to know where to find it, you need to know what problem you're trying to solve as well. So this is something also that I'm happy to share. I have a tech guide where you actually start at the issue. So for example, working memory. What are the struggles that I'm having with working memory at the moment? What's the tech that I could potentially pick up that is currently embedded? I don't have to ask for help. I don't have to go and have a conversation, but I can help break down that barrier myself without having to do that. So I think there is a lot available to us. We just don't necessarily always know where to look.
Great, thank you. Anything, I know for me, from and what else has helped, yoga, meditation has been a big thing for me to be able to quiet my brain. But Amanda or Carla or Sarah, is there anything that you would like to add to that question?
I'd love to add, honor your spoons. Like, for the love of God, there's no trophies if we ignore, spending way too many spoons. And also really be aware of your sensory triggers as well, because I find that they happen a lot faster. And enlist the people around you. Like, so I always say, like, it's one of those things where if somebody around you in your family or your friends or whatever broke their arm, you wouldn't just let them struggle on their own. So if you get a hot flash, somebody's job should be to get the fan for you, or to make you a cold drink or whatever. It's okay to ask people for specific help. That's okay. So do that.
And I think the one thing I would say is as well is where you can is kind of try to work with your brain a little bit more, because I think that whole brain fog issue has been so much more apparent in the menopause than it was before. But working at times where, if you can get that support to be able to work at times and like I say, ask for that help. And I agree with the comments about tech. That's been a lifesaver. An absolute lifesaver.
Thank you. There's a question that's come up in the chat around interviews and whether it's
You've muted, Kathryn.
Sorry, I'm not sure how much of that went through before I was on mute. A question in the chat about interviews and how much of how acceptable is it to ask for a copy of the interview questions in advance? And that's something at GAIN that we are advocating and supporting, and on our jobs board that we ask employers to do that, to support neurodiverse individuals. Sarah, is that something that you've experienced within Aviva?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we sort of work. I think the recruitment team's definitely working on that, and it is in all of our job adverts, where if you let them know in advance, you can ask for a copy of the question set before you go into that interview. I think sometimes it could be provided a little bit earlier. It depends how long you need to sort of work with that. But yeah, I think it's really key, especially for people with neurodivergence, to sort of be able to know what they're coming into and what the expectations are, and have that discussion about any adjustments that they might need to have made in the interview process, not just the questions, but maybe the setting of the interview as well, and working with the interviewers.
Tania, is that something that you embedded within your work of the Centre of Excellence at EY?
100%. So the recruitment process was a bit of a passion for mine, and actually went on to win a couple of awards for neuro-inclusive recruitment. And we did provide the interview questions up front for every single candidate. And it's something I do a lot of work with organisations now, and they are reluctant to change. And I think you've got to break it into like almost 3 different levels. So there's the organisation that won't signpost that they offer reasonable adjustments at all. There'll be the organisation that signpost it for neurodivergent individuals, and therefore if they are signposting it on both of those 2 levels, you should ask if you think they're going to be useful for you. And then the third organisation, which there are very few of them at the moment, are those that provide it for everybody, because actually ultimately that's where we should be getting to, is a place where actually there are very few scenarios where those interview questions in advance are going to provide some sort of advantage for the candidate, in terms of maybe if it's a client-facing role and you need somebody to think on their feet, and therefore the questions are giving them the questions in advance might not be testing the skills you're looking for. But for the majority of roles that we recruit, we should be able to see them. That's my view, but it is incredibly contentious when I talk about interview questions in advance. Not everybody's on the same bus.
Thank you. I do have a question coming up around doctors, and how would you talk to a GP who dismisses or minimises concerns, especially given, well, firstly for menopause, then for diagnosis of neurodiversity. So Carla, I can see you nodding your head there. Can I come to you first?
It's really important to find that doctor that you connect with on a therapeutic and clinical level. If they are not there for you, they are not your doctor. Now, I know that's a lot more difficult in the UK with the National Health Service. There was a reason I left. I'm not here to bag on your healthcare system in the slightest. But it took me a long time to find a doctor. What we need to remember is that women's health in particular is incredibly underfunded. So the research and the progress in women's health is so far behind that there's, 7 times more in erectile dysfunction than there is in endometriosis, So make sure that you're talking to doctors in terms of symptoms. Make sure that you use AI by any stretch of the imagination. If you wake up one morning and you had a really bad night's sleep, you woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's very normal for perimenopausal and menopausal women, is to have that really early wake up time, the itchy ears, the hot sweats, the brain fog, the cognitive dysfunction, anything that's not your norm. Document it. Have it written out in a printed piece of paper ready to take with you to the doctor, so that cognitive dysfunction and that brain fog doesn't escape you at that moment when you get to see a doctor that you've waited 3 months to see. That would be my really key piece of advice. And if you're lucky, you get that 1 in a million doctor. Like, if my doctor has been on maternity leave for 3 times now, I've asked her to get a hysterectomy because I don't want her to go on leave anymore. But find them and stick with them. And when they are the right one for you, they are the right one for you, and they will help and support you to the end. It's just finding them. That's the tricky part.
I'm going to just jump in and say, if you can't find them, I think you really do need to be tenacious with it, because I've been through that where I've gone, I've asked, I've been sent away, and I've had to go back again. and again to get things dealt with. And I think that is the most frustrating thing, is that not being listened to, and the dismissal around symptoms of, well, what do you want that for? Especially around, I think, the getting onto the diagnostic pathway for the, I mean, I'm not even going to go there with the getting to the point of hysterectomy, but getting on the diagnostic pathway for the ADHD in the first place, it took me about 3 attempts, I think, to get them to actually refer me, because I was dismissed with, well, why do you want to do that? You don't want the medication, do you? And that was at the point at which I'd seen the difference it had made for my kids, and I did want to try it. I'm not medicated at the moment. I have tried medication. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but I think it's that tenacity. Just keep at it and don't let them dismiss you.
Can I build on that, actually? Because I love your points, Carla and Sarah. My dad is a doctor, and I had talked to him about this, and he said, he gave me a piece of advice. If you can't change your doctor or the nurse or whoever, and you're stuck with this person, the best thing to do when they refuse to investigate or they don't listen to you is to ask for their refusal to treat or investigate in writing. So go, okay, great, that's fine. Can you email me? You know, and just say, okay, I'm refusing. They change their mind every single time. It's like magic. Now, I'm not guaranteeing results for everybody who's sitting in this room, but I'm telling you, it's worked for me every time. So
Thank you very much, everybody. So we're just coming to the end of our time, and there's been some fantastic discussions. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to our very active audience. My learn for next time is how to switch the pings off and the messages, but we will send instructions on that. But thank you, everybody. I mean, I have learned so much in this panel. It's been fantastic to share the experiences of Amanda, Carla, Sarah, Tania. Thank you. We will be sending, we'll put back up in a minute the link to the GAIN survey. Please do fill that in. Please make your contribution to that survey that we can then take into the work that we do to make workplaces more neuro-friendly. And we will be sending a feedback as well, and the documents that we have mentioned. But I'm going to give everybody a very quick, what's the one thing that you would like to leave the audience with? Amanda.
That despite how big your obstacles are, menopause and neurodivergence at the same time, you will be amazed at what you will get through. You will just find your community and share what you know as well. Share your experiences too. Thank you. Tania.
So my brain has literally just emptied at that question, and I have literally not a response to it. So
that's
and
fine.
I can take that because I'm on a menopause call.
Carla.
Estrogen. Just ask for help if you need it. You know, there are links to estrogen being protective of Alzheimer's and dementia, but the research just isn't there yet because it's not funded, and it doesn't work for everybody. It's not a magic cure, but speak to somebody. Speak to somebody. You're not alone.
I'm in the estrogen club. Thank you.
Estrogen.
Sarah.
Just keep talking. I think for me, just keep talking about it, because the more that we have these conversations, the more that we know that we're not alone going through this, and the more that you learn because you speak to other people, and it's generally us that are going through it, that sharing our experiences where you get your information from. It's often not from you know, official sources. So just keep talking to each other and supporting each other, because we are amazing.
Fantastic. Tania, I'll give you a right to refuse in case it's popped back into your head.
I was going to say, embrace your humanness. You are who you are. You can't be anything different. And actually, it's so much easier if you just embrace who you are rather than trying to mold yourself into something else.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think the sense of community that is coming from the chat, this session, we need more community as women in this stage of our lives, to actually know that we're not alone. So thank you very much to each of our fantastic panel and everything that you have brought collectively and individually. Thank you to an amazing audience. We had around 260 people for the majority of the session, which has been absolutely amazing. Thank you. We will send a link to the survey and to the documents that we talked about. Have a fantastic Tuesday and enjoy Neurodiversity Celebration Week. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending. Thank you.